Hey, I'm Jonathan from the Body of Evidence. First of all, thank you to all of you who showed up to the stage show that Chris and I hosted last Sunday. If you couldn't make it, we will be releasing the complete audio as podcast episodes in the coming weeks, so you can check out our podcast. Also, we've started to release some video clips from the show. We had a blast. If you want to check out those clips, you can just look at our YouTube channel or go to bodyofevidence.ca. Just look around, it's all there. Today, I wanted to talk about one of the most crucial elements as a skeptic when I'm trying to convince people that what they believe in isn't true. I'm working on a scripted video now on integrative medicine, and that includes a lot of alternative medicine like Reiki and acupuncture and chiropractic. And I've had discussions online and in real life with people who believe in these things. And it's almost impossible to break through that wall. It's almost impossible to have discussions with them. And different people will have different approaches on how to talk to these people. And some people are very confrontational, and others are very understanding and caring. And to me, what it boils down to, what this communication problem boils down to, is a difference in epistemologies. So I want to break it down today. So epistemology is the study of how we gain knowledge. How do we gain reliable knowledge about the world around us? There are different ways of getting that information. And depending on how you gain your information, that will have a good or a bad influence on the decisions that you make. This is very important because we use information about the world for every decision that we make. The car that we want to buy, the job that we want, whether or not to be in a relationship with someone, what we want to study in college, and all these things. So all of these decisions are influenced by data, by information that we get, and we have to get that information somehow. And so there are different ways of gaining that knowledge, and different people will rely more heavily on a particular epistemology versus another. As a skeptic, I try to rely as much as possible on scientific evidence, on empiricism, on things that we can observe, quantify. This is the epistemology that I tend to favor. For most people, the epistemology that they try to favor, and that includes anybody who's into naturopathy, is personal experience, it's instinct, it's emotions. So whatever they feel about this is what they will use to decide if something is working or not. And the problem with that epistemology, the problem with gaining knowledge about the world using personal experience, using emotions and instincts, is that all of these things are products of our brains. And our brain is lying to us every single day. Our brains are deceiving us. And most people aren't really aware of this. But as you study critical thinking, this is one of the first things that you realize. It's at the core of critical thinking, of skepticism. This idea that our brains are deceiving us. For instance, our memories are not as reliable as we would like them to be. And just because you're confident in a memory has no bearing on whether or not that memory is true. Some very famous psychological experiments have been done using the Challenger explosion and 9/11, checking on people right after the event and then a few years later and asking them, where were you when this happened? And it is shocking to see how many people are confident that they were doing a particular thing 2 years, 3 years before when this happened. And actually that's not at all what they were doing. But they're confident in that memory. So our memories are lying to us all the time. Whenever we retrieve a memory, we sort of we change, that memory gets changed a little bit. It's kind of like compressing a picture file on your computer. Each time you compress it, you lose details. We also have a host of cognitive biases, ways in which our thinking is warped, that a lot of people are not aware of. The most common one is probably confirmation bias. And this is simple. So you take your average married heterosexual couple and you ask the husband, do you put the toilet seat down after you've used the bathroom? And he will say, yes, I do. You ask the wife will say, no, he never does. And what's happening is that they're both wrong. And what's happening is that the husband remembers the times that he puts it down because he wants to believe that he's a good husband. So he notices when he puts it down, he does not notice when he leaves it up. Likewise, the wife thinks that her husband isn't doing his job and notices the times when the lid is up, but does not notice it when the lid is down. That's basic confirmation bias. And if you're trying to gain knowledge about the world without acknowledging this confirmation bias, then you will be wrong a lot of the times. We also take mental shortcuts, these heuristics, that can also influence our thinking. So our brains are just deceiving us all the time. And if we rely on personal experience, if we rely on our perceptions, on our instincts, we are being lied to. And that is something that believers in naturopathy, for instance, do not understand. And that should be the crux of our discussions with them. And it is a lot like being an atheist and talking to believers. You should not be arguing over the particulars of their beliefs. You should always bring it back. If you want to be efficient, you should always bring it back to, how do you know this? How have you gained this knowledge? How could you be wrong about this? So to always bring it back to epistemology. And I think we need to start using this when we're talking to people who believe in Reiki, people who believe in acupuncture, people who believe in chiropractic because of personal experiences. Not to give them evidence, to put evidence at their feet, because that usually does not work. But actually to talk about how they know this and how could they be wrong about this. So this is a big challenge for me, and I hope that I can apply this in life more and more. It's essentially the Socratic dialogue. I mean, if you're familiar with this, you know about it. So the Socratic dialogue is this method of just asking questions, sort of like playing Columbo, where you just pretend to be dumb and you just keep asking questions until the person who's being asked these questions realizes that she's contradicted herself. And it's so much more efficacious to do it this way, as opposed to you telling them that they're wrong, to bring them to realize for themselves that they are wrong. So I want to recommend 2 books about the topic, if this is something that you're interested in. The first one is A Manual for Creating Atheists, a manual by Peter Boghossian. This is basically how he uses the Socratic method to talk to believers, religious believers, but I think we need a tome 2 to talk about how to use this for people who believe in naturopathy. And the second book is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, which is a fantastic book, goes pretty much in depth about the 2 systems of thinking that we have that I described earlier. He calls them System 1 and System 2. System 1 being the fast way of thinking, using your instinct, using whatever biases you have and heuristics. And System 2 being the slower, rational one. And System 1 is easy, and we use it all the time. And most of the time it does its job very well, but sometimes it ends up lying to us. And System 2 consumes a lot of energy. It's not fun. We're lazy. We try not to use it. But if we used it more, if we start thinking more slowly rather than fast, then we might gain more reliable knowledge about the world.